What's up? So the 240 is finally getting a new turbo. But before I show you which turbo I got for it and tell you about plans going forwards, let's talk about some backstory behind why this is turboed in the first place and what it's been like having an eBay turbo setup for 13 years, the pros and cons, why you should or should not, probably should not do it. Yeah. Back in 2007, there was a pro drift series called Nopi Drift. Yeah, that Nopi. It was like FD, but smaller. But like FD, in order to compete, you had to earn your license. Now, me, with my bone stock awesomeness, was trying to get my license through a feeder series called Drift Fury. If you placed high enough at Drift Fury, you get your Nopi license, and, hooray. Anyway, the last event that I slid with the bone stock motor, no turbo, all I had was coilovers, welded diff, short shifter, and a couple years drifting. That was about it. I came in 2 points behind the guy who earned his license. The only guy at the event who earned his license. I was 2 points away, and I was also the only non-turbo car there. Like stock motor, everything. There wasn't even an 8.6 there. I was the slowest car there. Now, the way that they judged these events was much like any other drift competition. Your line, your angle, all that fun stuff. With the clipping points, every foot away you are from the clipping point, you lose a point. So if you're a foot away, 1 point down. If you're more than 3 feet away from the clipping point, you get a 0 for that clipping point, and your run's pretty much, pretty screwed up. So having the slowest car there and only being 2 points behind the guy who got his license, I felt like I was doing pretty decently, especially because I felt like I couldn't do anything better. But I wanted to know, where did I lose those 2 points and how can I improve? What can I do differently? So I went up to the judges and asked them, hey, where did I lose these 2 points and what can I do better next time? They told me that I lost the 2 points because I wasn't carrying the same speed as the other drivers. Even though I was in the slowest car there and my foot never left the ground, they told me that, look, you're trying to get into a pro drift series with a stock car, stock motor, you can't be competitive. So, there's no point. I was like, well, once you get the license, you get the sponsors. When you get the sponsors, you get the parts. Which made sense, but, anyway. So I went home, wanted to put a turbo kit together just to get, that extra oomph to, maintain speed. So hopped on eBay. eBay intercooler piping kit for an SR20 bottom mount that I had to hack up to fit this. eBay intercooler, eBay turbo, eBay wastegate, blow-off valve, tubular manifold that I bought off a friend that I'm sure came from eBay. And then SR injectors from Carolina Nissans, Apexi S AFC to tune it all, and that was, fuel pump, and that was pretty much it. So got everything put together, didn't get it tuned, just kind of fiddled with the computer until it ran fine, went up and down the street. The next morning, drove out to my buddy Chris Orsini's house, and we put on a trailer, towed it out to Nashville to a Drift Fury event. I came in 4th out of 32 drivers, and hey, I had my license. So went home, put a cage in it, got a sponsor, got it tuned and all this stuff, and put some numbers together and realized I can't afford this. So I got my license, which is what I was going for. Couldn't afford to actually go and compete at these events, and the whole Nopi Drift series kind of died out anyway, so it didn't really matter. But, I got my kind of confirmation that, hey, I could actually slide decently well. Anyway, that's why this is even turboed in the first place, and that's why I just slapped together a cheap eBay kit. Now, how has this been over 13 years? Well, the first turbo lasted 3 years, and I was daily driving it 4+ hours to events and back, sliding it. I lived in Georgia for a few years and took this down there as my only car, so I drove it, a lot. And in 3 years, the turbo failed, but though it failed in that the oil seals were leaking and it was smoking a bit. Spool was just fine, the car ran just fine, just some smoke, when you're sitting there idling. This turbo is doing the same thing. It's been good. March of last year, began smoking on the way down to an event, and that's pretty much it. It's been doing that in all the videos, and you guys know it. Spool was just fine. smokes a bit. So that's why I'm replacing it. Now, as far as having an eBay turbo kit, you know, what issues have I had along the way? When I first put this together, the blow-off valve wasn't working. I took it apart, put it back together, and it began working. It doesn't work anymore, but it makes cool sounds, so I don't really care. So, you know, whatever. The wastegate has been fine. It began chattering after a while. I took it apart, tightened a bunch of things down, and put it back together, and it's been fine ever since. Yeah, I have blown up this, oh, not this motor, but I have blown up a KA. I have spun rod bearings. I have blown head gasket. But none of that has actually been due to the car being turboed or it being a cheap turbo system. When I blew up the motor, drove down to Concord, which from where I was living at the time was like an hour and 45 minutes, and to a drift demo for Hot Import Nights. We did all the practice runs and everything. Car ran fine. We finished practice. Ernie from NOS Energy Drinks came and was like, hey, you know, we've got these 2 volunteers. You guys want to take them for a run real quick? I was like, yeah, sure. One more run won't hurt. Well, anyway, one more run, I blew up the motor. Turns out the drain line from the turbo, the oil line, developed a leak, and I was sliding in no oil, and of course my number 3 rod ended up on top of my motor mount. 2 weeks later, I had a new motor in here, and I was drifting at a demo out in Nashville, and it was fine. Fast forward 1 year, same event, same demo, same, you know, everything. 1 year later, practice runs, spun a rod bearing. Turns out when the motor blew up the year before, it punched a hole through the oil pan. My buddy's dad welded it for me, and it had been fine up until exactly 1 year later when the weld failed on the drive down to the event again, and I was sliding with no oil. And me being giddy and just really wanting to slide, I just wasn't really checking things. So I spun a rod bearing and, you know, replaced that, and it was good. I've cracked the ringland, but that's because it was a high mileage KA, not because it was boosted. High mileage KAs develop a lip on the cylinder wall, and bad things happen if you rev it too high. Blew a head gasket. Didn't really blow the head gasket. It was just leaking into the coolant passages a bit, so it ran fine. Every 3 or 4 runs, it would start overheating. I'd have to let it cool down, bleed the system, and it was fine again. Really haven't had any, because I have a cheap eBay turbo kit problem. Oh, actually, I take that back. The turbo manifold cracked at Myrtle Beach, and during the competition, my wastegate actually fell off because the tube completely broke in half. So I got that welded, told the guy to reinforce it. He's like, no, my welds are good. I was like, your welds are good, but the manifold isn't. So anyway, went to ZMAX, was sliding there, and the manifold cracked again. And at some point, I guess it like shot some flames out or something, but I had an engine fire. It shot flames, lit something, and anyway, roasted some wires. Luckily, the guy welded and reinforced it for free, and it's been fine ever since. I'm still running. Literally, the only thing that I've replaced is the turbo itself. And like I said, when they fell, they still run fine. It just smokes a bit. And I've been okay with that, you know, every couple of years, $100. I don't have anything vested into this motor aside from the cost of the motor itself, which isn't even $500. So catastrophic failure, you know, I'll just build a motor and throw it in, it's fine. So yeah, if you have a stock motor and you want to put an eBay turbo kit on it, I wouldn't put an eBay wastegate, because if that gets stuck and you boost like 1,000,000 PSI, bad things are going to happen. Aside from that, turbo and blow-off valve, I think you can get away with it. Just keep an eye on it, and you know, if something bad happens and you have a stock motor, you're not really losing much. If you have any actual money into your motor, don't. Protect your investment. You know, if you're going to build this, you know, get a real turbo, a decent wastegate and everything. So I would say probably shouldn't do it. But if you just want to boost your motor for cheap, you know, go for it. And you have a turbo kit for a few years, and you're going to need a new turbo after a bit. So I know I said that we're going to put a new turbo in. We're going to start actually putting some money and some effort into here, tune it with something real. And I have a turbo. So let me show you what I got.
Please, no! 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 No!
Wait, come back. I know I'm said I'm going to build this. We're going to do a lot of fun stuff down here, and we still are. But there's 3 reasons. There are 3 reasons why this is going in there. Why we're going with yet another eBay turbo and all its cheap eBay glory. Let me put this down, and I will tell you why. 3 reasons. Reason number 1 is it gives me a bit more time to figure out what we're going to do with this long term. Parts, turbo, all that fun stuff. It gives me a bit more time. Reason number 2 is the money that I am not putting into the turbo and building it right off the bat, I can put into the rest of the car. 5-lug conversion, the new wheels that I need to get for that, fixing things that are broken, making it look a little bit nicer. I can start doing that because it's actually running fine, so I can focus on the things that aren't fine with it. 3, I want to do an experiment. And I have a perfect, scenario to do this experiment. And that experiment is, how long will a $110 turbo off eBay last, and what can it take? The car is running fine, nothing's wrong with it. Right now, it just smokes a bit, and that's because of turbo. So electrically, mechanically, everything's fine, and it has been a nightmare to get it to where it is now electrically. Remember when I said I had that engine fire way back when? That roasted some wires I needed to fix. And then I had some other really silly, stupid stuff happen that, long story short, all new wiring harness, a bunch of new electrical components and sensors and everything. It's finally running decently, mechanically, electrically, just a bit of smoke. So we're going to keep track of how many miles I put on this turbo, all the events that I go to, all the drifting is going to be on video. You guys are going to see it. And we're going to see, how long does it take it to fail, and when's it going to fail? Now, just because this turbo that I have right now and the one before it lasted a few years, doesn't mean that this new one will. And it doesn't mean that this new turbo is going to fail in such a boring way like these did, oil seals. When you buy a turbo online, these cheap Chinese ones, you don't know what you're getting. This turbo that's on there right now, where is it? Yeah, right there. Did not look like the turbo that I thought I was getting. It's the right size, but it's different. This new turbo does not look like what's in the photo of the one that I bought. So, are they made the same? Probably not, but maybe they are. Who knows? We're going to find out. Now, I'm okay doing this because I don't have anything invested into this motor aside from the cost of the motor itself, which isn't even $500. Something catastrophic happens, it's fine. I'm not losing a lot. I'm not using a bunch of expensive parts. I'm going to be building this eventually anyway, so, let's have some fun with it beforehand. Now, if you have a built motor, built head, built bottom end, some real parts and everything, don't do this. I'm going to do this so you don't have to, and we're going to see what happens. And because I'm doing this, the rest of the car can get, fun stuff. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Right now it runs fine, so let's focus on the parts that aren't fine. Let's go throw that thing in there and start the show.